Hello and welcome. I am Christopher John Bjerknes. It is July 18th, 2022. Today I'm going to be explaining my theories and insights regarding a very ancient, occult, and esoteric set of beliefs which underlie Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The ancients believed that there was a Metagod, which existed beyond the fixed stars, above all the known planets of our solar system. They believed that this Metagod first emanated all human souls, and that human souls descended across the 7 planets to the Earth, and while they were descending, picked up some of the negative traits of some of those planets. The goal, therefore, of life is to purify the human soul so that it can ascend back to God and traverse across those same 7 planets, passing through gates with secret passwords and avoiding all the evil gods who dwell on those planets to ultimately return to God in a mystical, ecstatic reunion with God. These beliefs derive from the ancient religions of the Persians, who worshipped a male god called Mithra, who was the god of the sun. These are Roman sculptures of Mithras, and the Romans converted this ancient Persian religion into their mystery religion. And they incorporated many of the elements of the Orphic, Eleusinian, and Samothracian mystery religions into a new syncretic religion, which was the worship of Mithras in Rome. All of these images are very allegorical and symbolic of the ancient belief that the sun would conquer the night every morning at dawn and arise, and it was the sun that brought life to the earth. The sun enables plants to grow, it warms the earth, it brings the summer in which crops can be grown. This figure here is Mithras. He represents the sun. The sun is slaying a bull with a sword. The bull symbolizes the moon, the night, and the darkness. Below is the serpent of chaos, and in many sculptures, the serpent is ascending to the wound that is created when Mithras plunges his sword deep into the bowl of the moon. The dog represents all of the animals which are produced by Mithras when he slays the great bull in the heavens. Below are the bull's testes, which are being attacked by Scorpio, the scorpion. The bull's testes provide the life force that creates all of nature and all of living beings. The light of the sun, the light of Mithras, commingles with the darkness just as it illuminates the moon. When the light commingles with the darkness in the womb of chaos, it produces creation. And those are the fundamental mystery religion beliefs which the Romans incorporated into their worship of Mithras. This worship of Mithras introduced to the Romans the Platonic notion that the soul was first emanated by a god beyond the 7 planets, traversed across the 7 planets, and must be perfected in its journey back up through the 7 planets so that the soul need not be reincarnated. Should the soul fail to become perfected and complete this journey, it is doomed to return again and again until it ultimately becomes perfected. It's very similar to the Hindu beliefs in reincarnation. The Britannica article on Mithraism, which you can find at this website, states in the relevant portion The myth was interpreted by the Roman Mithraic in terms of Platonic philosophy. The sacrifice took place in a cave, an image of the world, as in the simile of the cave in Plato's Republic. Mithra himself was equated with the demiurge, or creator, of the Timaeus. He was called demiurge and father of all things. Demiurge means craftsman, like the Platonic demiurge. The four elements, the mixing bowl, the creation of time, and the attack of the wicked animals upon the newborn creature, are all well-known features of the Timaeus. The Mithraic doctrine of the soul is intimately linked with the myth of creation and the Platonic philosophy. As in the Timaeus, the human soul came down from heaven. It crossed the 7 spheres of the planets, taking on their vices, ergo those of Mars and of Venus, and was finally caught within the body. The task of human life is to liberate one's divine part, the soul, from the shackles of the body, and to reascend through the 7 spheres to the eternal, unchanging realm of the fixed stars. This ascent to the sky was prefigured by Mithra himself when he left the earth in the chariot of the sun god. The initiates were organized in 7 grades: raven, bridegroom, soldier, lion, Persian, courier of and to the sun, father. To each rank belonged a particular mask, raven, Persian, lion, or dress, bridegroom. The rising of the Mithraic in grade prefigured the ascent of the soul after death. The series of the 7 initiations seems to have been enacted by passing through 7 gates and climbing a ladder of 7 steps. Each grade was attributed to one of the 7 planetary gods. The zealous Mithraic gradually passed the spheres of these minor deities and finally reached the region of the fixed stars. This is very similar to the Egyptian belief that you would need to know passwords and codes and how to operate after death. And in the pyramids, in the tombs of the pharaohs, they would provide instructions to the dead on how to make the journey to the afterlife. And the journey across the 7 planets is very similar. One must pass through the gates, utilize passwords, and eventually reach the realm at the extreme of the 7th planet, Saturn, where one is confronted with the abyss, the great divide, as Plato called it. And one must purify his soul, release his soul from his body, and then cross over the great abyss to the realm of the Metagod of the One, or the monad, as Plato called it. The famous Freemason Albert Pike wrote in his book, Morals and Dogma, the ancients counted 7 planets thus arranged: the moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. There were 7 heavens and 7 spheres of these planets. On all the monuments of Mithras are 7 altars or pyres, consecrated to the 7 planets, as were the 7 lamps of the golden candelabrum in the temple. That these represented the planets, we are assured by Clemens of Alexandria in his Stromata, and by Philo Judaeus. To return to its source in the infinite, the human soul, the ancients held, had to ascend, as it descended through the 7 spheres. The ladder by which it reascends has, according to Marsilius Ficinus in his commentary on the Aeneid of Plotinus, 7 degrees or steps, and in the Mysteries of Mithras carried to Rome under the emperors, the ladder with its 7 rounds, was a symbol referring to this ascent through the spheres of the 7 planets. Jacob saw the spirits of God ascending and descending on it, and above it the deity himself. Jacob's ladder and Ezekiel's chariot are symbolic of this ascent through the planets to the heavens. The Mithraic mysteries were celebrated in caves, where gates were marked at the 4 equinoctial and celestial points of the zodiac, and the 7 planetary spheres were represented, which souls needs must traverse in descending from the heaven of the fixed stars to the elements that envelop the earth, and 7 gates were marked, one for each planet, through which they pass in descending or returning. The Orphic mystery religions also had something called the bronze tablet or the golden tablet, which also provided instructions on how one is to pass through these gates and traverse on the journey to the afterlife. We learn this from Celsus in Origin, who says that the symbolic image of this passage among the stars used in the Mithraic mysteries was a ladder reaching from earth to heaven into 7 steps or stages, to each of which was a gate, and at the summit an 8th one, that of the fixed stars. The symbol was the same as that of the 7 stages of Borsippa, the pyramid of vitrified brick near Babylon, built of 7 stages, and each of a different color. Bear that in mind, that's important. In the Mithraic ceremonies, the candidate went through 7 stages of initiation, passing through many fearful trials, and of these the high ladder with 7 rounds or steps was the symbol. Celsus, as quoted by Origen, tells us that the Persians represented by symbols the twofold motion of the stars, fixed and planetary, and the passage of the soul through their successive spheres. They erected in their holy caves, in which the mystic rites of the Mithraic initiations were practiced, what he denominates a high ladder, on the 7 steps of which were 7 gates or portals, according to the number of the 7 principal heavenly bodies, the 7 planets. Through these the aspirants passed until they reached the summit of the whole, and this passage was styled a transmigration through the spheres, and the moon and the sun were counted as planets. The route followed by souls according to Porphyry, or rather their progressive march in the world, lying through the fixed stars and planets, the Mithraic cave not only displayed the zodiacal and other constellations, and marked gates at the 4 equinoctial and celestial points of the zodiac, whereat souls enter into and escape from the world of generations, and through which they pass to and fro between the realms of light and darkness. But it represented the 7 planetary spheres which they needs must traverse, in descending from the heaven of the fixed stars to the elements that envelop the earth. And 7 gates were marked, one for each planet, through which they pass in descending or returning. That's returning to God. We learn this from Celsus in Origin, who says that the symbolic image of this passage among the stars, used in Mithraic mysteries, was a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, divided into 7 steps or stages, to each of which was a gate, and at the summit an 8th, that of the fixed stars. The first gate, says Celsus, was that of Saturn, and of lead, by the heavy nature whereof his dull, slow progress was symbolized. The second, of tin, was that of Venus, symbolizing her soft splendor and easy flexibility. The third, of brass, was that of Jupiter, emblem of his solidity and dry nature. The fourth of iron was that of Mercury, expressing his indefatigable activity and sagacity. The fifth of copper was that of Mars, expressive of his inequalities and variable nature. The sixth of silver was that of the moon, and the seventh of gold that of the sun. This order is not the real order of these planets, but a mysterious one, like that of the days of the week consecrated to them, commencing with Saturday and retrograding to Sunday. Sunday represents the sun, Saturday represents Saturn. It was dictated, Celsus says, by certain harmonic relations, those of the fourth. In these Orthodox Christian depictions of the seven planets and the seven rays, which appear frequently in very old Christian art, and which also appear in halos as seven beams, represent the emanation of the Metagod, who is beyond the abyss, the great divide, that the soul must cross over, which it first crossed over when emanated by the Metagod, the One, the Holy One. The soul then traverses down through the seven planets, and in Mars and Venus picks up negative traits before it enters into the sublunar realm below the moon of chaos, which is the earth. Satan reigns in this sublunar realm below the moon and tries to prevent souls from traversing back up the seven planets to the Holy One. This realm is the realm of Satan. This realm is the realm of God. Satan fell from the realm of God to the sublunar regions of the earth because he wanted to create a world of his own. The light in the highest realm of God is pure white light. The abyss acts like a prism, which separates the seven rays of light into the rainbow of the spectrum, which is composed of seven colors, which are represented in the Noahide laws and in the bow of Noah and in the rainbow flag of the Reformation and today in the LBGQT flag. The Gnostics also believed in the journey across the seven planets. Gnostic means knowledge. In Kabbalah, that Gnostic knowledge is represented by the word deat, which is the hidden 11th Sephirah in the Sephirotic tree of life. And it is a prism which separates the white light of the divine realm, the upper three Sephirah, into the seven lower colors of the Sephirot below. The seven heavens are referred to as the Agdoad in Gnosticism. All the early Gnostics, whose opinions Irenaeus gives an account in section 123 and sequence, probably derive from an earlier writer, agree in the doctrine that the world was made by the instrumentality of Archons. The Archons are variously either regular angel godlike beings, or in some strains of Gnosticism, very evil beings who inhabit the seven planets and try to prevent souls from climbing back up the ladder of the seven planets to an ecstatic reunion with God, the Unio Mystica. Their brief account given in the teaching of the first two in the list, Simon and Menander, does not state whether or not they define the numbers of these archons, but it is expressly told of the third, Saturnus, chapter 24, that he counted them as 7. Some very old books like Baruch, third Baruch, the Greek Apocalypse of Baruch, number 5 heavens. So there was not a universal understanding, but 7 was counted as the 7 heavens by Pythagoras and by most of the ancients. At the end of the first book of Irenaeus is a section, to all appearance derived from a source different from that just referred to. Here, chapter 29, relates the opinions of heretics, to whom he himself gives no title, but whom his copyist, Theodoret, calls ophites. That refers to snakes. The ophite teaching may be used to illustrate that of Saturnus, his connection with that school being closer than with any other. It would be natural to think that the number of 7 archons was suggested to Saturnus by astronomical considerations. And this supposition is verified by the statement in the latter chapter, chapter 30, that the holy heptamos are the 7 stars called planets. In fact, the sphere of the 7 stars, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, were supposed to be presided over, each by a different archon. Their names are differently given. Irenaeus, chapter 30, giving them Yaldabaoth, the chief, Yao, Sabaoth, Adonais, Eloeus, Aureus, and Astaphaeus. With this closely agrees Origen, who, writing of the Ophites, gives the names Yaldabaoth, Yao, Sabaoth, Adonais, Astaphaeus, Eleus, Horeus, Epiphanius, Heresies 26, page 91. Relating the opinions of what was clearly a branch of the same school, places in the highest heaven Yaldabaoth, or, according to the others, Sabaoth. In the next, Eleus, according to one version, Yaldabaoth, according to the other, and in the next, Adonais and Eloeus. Beneath these, Dades, Seth, Saklas, and lowest of all, Yao. It was thought that each of the Jewish prophets was sent by a different one of these 7 archons, whose special glory that prophet was to declare. Thus, Irenaeus 130, page 109, the first archon sent Moses, Joshua, Amos, and Habakkuk. The second, Samuel, Nathan, Jonah, and Micah. The third, Elijah, Joel, and Zechariah. The fourth, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, and Daniel. The fifth, book of Tobit and Haggai. The sixth, Micah, or Malachi, and Nahum. The seventh, Ezra and Zephaniah. The Wikipedia article on the Archons states, the Archons are rulers, each related to one of the 7 planets. They prevent souls from leaving the material realm. In some branches of Gnosticism, the Archons are evil gods, and the Aeons are holy gods. And the Archons and Aeons are all androgynous gods. The Ophites presented Yaldabaoth as the Archon ruling the planet Saturn, which is very significant. And that is because Yaldabaoth is the demiurge, the evil creator god, who created the evil material world without knowledge of the one. And again, this relates to the Platonic dualism, that there is an ideal universe of the one, and then there is a flawed copy of the ideal, which is the world that we perceive in our consciousness. And this goes through and lists all of the Archons and their planets. And again, the goal of human life is to ascend, to first free the soul from the corpse of the material body in the evil realm of Satan, of the sublunar regions of the earth. And then the soul is to traverse through the 7 gates of the 7 planets by issuing passwords and answering secret questions correctly. and ultimately to reunite with God beyond in the fixed stars. Judaism adopted these same beliefs. In the Babylonian Talmud, in the tractate Chagigah, folio 12b, it states, Reish Lakish said, there are 7 firmaments, and they are as follows: Velan, Rakia, Shach, Akum, Tsevel, Ma'on, Machaon, and Aravat. The Gemara proceeds to explain the role of each firmament. Velan, curtain, is the firmament that does not contain anything, but enters at morning and departs in the evening, and renews the act of creation daily. As it is stated, who stretches out the heavens as a curtain, Velan, and spreads them out as a tent to dwell in. Isaiah 40:22. This is reiterating an ancient Egyptian belief that each dawn replicates original creation when the sun rises and gives birth to the universe. Rakia, firmament, is the one in which the sun, moon, stars, and zodiac signs are fixed. As it is stated, and God set them in the firmament, Rakia, of the heaven. Genesis chapter 1, verse 17. Shechakim, heights, is the one in which mills stand and grind manna for the righteous, as it is stated, and he commands the heights, Shechakim, above, and open the doors of heaven, and he caused manna to rain upon them for food, and give them of the corn of heaven. Psalm 78:23-24. The Kabbalists recognize the fact that the Babylonian Talmud is a very primitive and poorly written set of commentaries upon the Torah, and that Kabbalah supersedes and rejects both the Torah and the Talmud and properly explains the nature of the 7 heavens and the ascent of the soul through the Sephirot in the attempt to return back to God and become righteous through purifying the soul in its ascent back up the Sephirot. 7 becomes extremely significant in Judaism. The Star of David represents the 6 directions: above, below, north, east, west, and south, and then the origin of everything in the temple in Jerusalem at the center of all the directions. It represents the 7 days of the week, the 7th day being the Sabbath day, the 6 days of creation, and the 7th day of rest, which represents 6,000 years in the present world, Olam Hazeh, and the Sabbath millennium in the world to come, Olam Haba, when the earth is elevated to the heavenly earth, and the two become one, and God is reunited in both his male and female aspects, Yahweh and Shekhinah, and the heavenly temple and the earthly temple become one. This is also represented in the temple menorah with its 7 lights representing the journey across the 7 planets to the planet Saturn, which represents the Sabbath millennium, the 7th day of rest, and the world to come, Olam Haba, in which the darkness and the light will have commingled like Mithras and the moon in the mixing bowl, and creation will have become perfected when the darkness begins to shine the way that the full moon shines when it absorbs all of the light of the daylight. This is the Sephirotic tree of life as first depicted by Johann Reuchlin in his cover art for Gates of Light. The Kabbalah states that the god Adam Kadmon emanated light into a contraction that was formed in the Metagod in order for existence to light, in order for creation to have been manifested. There needed to be a place in which creation could exist. Because the Metagod is the one, it could not be subdivided. So it contracted itself and then emitted light into that contraction. And that light became the demiurge Adam Kadmon, who filled the vessels of the Sephirot with that light as emanations of light from the One, which in Kabbalah is referred to as the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Ur, representing nothingness, limitlessness, and limitless light. That light then emanated from that first vessel into the next vessel, and from there all the way down into the final Sephirah, which is Melchut. The goal of the Kabbalist is to free his soul from the material world and from the corpse of flesh of his body so that it can follow the exact opposite path back up through the Sephirot to a mystical reunion with the gods. Even though it is supposedly a monotheistic religion, the Sephirot are worshipped as gods in Kabbalah, and they are ruled over by angels who are the equivalent of the Aeons and the Archons. And again, there are gates that have to be passed through, and passwords which have to be issued, and secret questions which have to be answered. And the Chassid, which is the equivalent of the initiate in the mystery religions, is taught all of these things. And as the Chassid ascends up the Sephirot, his soul becomes increasingly righteous and increasingly purified. And when he has to cross over, this 11th hidden Sephirah of Deat provides him with the knowledge that he will need when he confronts this terrible dilemma, which is called the dark night of the soul, at this Sephirah, in which the demons come to tempt him and try to mislead him to believe that he can never become righteous enough to cross over the abyss, over the great divide, into the realm, the upper realm, where he can become fully righteous and become a prophet who sees the book of the world, the heavenly Torah, and the map of creation. And if he is truly righteous, there are also Aeons who encourage him to cross over the bridge of Deat and ascend to the highest realm and become a righteous tzaddik, and become if he's righteous enough to cross all the way to the top, and become a prophet. This Sephirah Deat is that prism I was talking about. All the light in this upper realm of the top three Sephirot is white. But when it passes through the prism of Da'at, of knowledge, it becomes separated into the 7 colors of the spectrum and the 7 Sephirot below. These are the parents, and these 6 are the son. You can see in William Blake's painting of Jacob's Ladder that it represents this ascent up the lightning bolt of the Sephirot. Some of the angels are ascending, some are descending. The ultimate goal is to ascend all the way to the top, to a mystical reunion with the One, and to traverse across the 7 planets so that one can cross the great divide that separates the fixed stars from the moving stars of the 7 planets. And again, this occurs when one enters into the dark night of the soul, and the evil Archons, Saturn, Yaldabaoth, try to discourage the Chassid from crossing over the bridge of Deat. But the Aeons, the holy angels, try to tell him that he is indeed righteous and encourage his journey to continue. as much as he is filled with self-doubt, if he listens to the holy angels, he will cross over, become a righteous tzaddik, and ultimately become a prophet who sees the map of creation. This again all relates to the worship of the 7 planets. Islam incorporates the same beliefs of the mystery religion of Mithras, of the Romans. In the Quran, in Al-Isra, verse 44, it states, "The 7 heavens, the earth, and all that is within them give glory to him. There is nothing but gives glory to him with his praise. Though you do not understand their hymns of praise, he is most forbearing, exceedingly forgiven." Yasin, verse 40, "Neither does it lie in the sun's power to overtake the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. All glide along, each in its own orbit. The sun is the god Mithras. The moon is the bull that the sun slays every morning at the dawn to reinitiate creation." At-Talik, verse 12, "Allah, it is he who created 7 heavens, and like them the earth." And there are various translations of that which imply that there were 7 earths. And this is a point of controversy throughout the Islamic literature. "His commandment descends among them." All this is being stated so that you know that Allah has power over everything, and that Allah encompasses all things in his knowledge, and Allah exists in the fixed stars beyond the 7 planets, and every human soul must die, and when it dies, it ascends to varying grades of the 7 planets, up across Jacob's ladder. This figure of the 7 planets is fundamental in Islam, in which pilgrims circle around the Kaaba in Mecca 7 times, symbolizing the rotation of the 7 planets. In Sufism, they posit that there are 7 souls, which are very similar to the Neoplatonic conception, that there is the one, the monad, who emanates in his lap the demiurge, or nous, or logos, which is the creator of the universe, so that the unity of the one is not destroyed through creation, but is instead made by the demiurge, who represents light, commingling with the darkness in the womb of chaos below. And the demiurge, who has the mind of the nous and the divine will of all the universe to implement creation, emanates the world soul, and the world soul then emanates all the souls of the angels, human beings, animals, and plants. And below plants are minerals, and below minerals are matter. And matter is most distant from God, and has all of the opposite attributes of God. God is unity, the monad, the one. Chaos is infinitely particular. God is eternal. Chaos is infinitely ephemeral and chaotic and perpetually changing and different in every aspect of its being. And when minerals gain some of the order of God through the light emanated from God, they rise and become matter and minerals. Matter converts into minerals as it attains increasing order. It then gains more order, more of the logos, the divine reason that the nous imparts into the world. It becomes more ordered and becomes plants. Animals feed upon plants, and then that matter attains even greater order, and the soul of animals. And then human beings consume both animals and plants and attain even higher order. And the goal of the human being is to free the soul from the confines of matter, which cause the soul to constantly lust after food and sex, which inhibits the soul from ascending the 7 planets and returning the one. So the soul must engage in contemplation of nature and all of the divine reason which is found within nature, and that frees the soul from the material body, which chains it down, and then the soul can ascend back to the one. And this is the same goal of the Abrahamic religions, which copied it from the Platonists and from the Persian worship of Mithra, especially as it became a religious cult in Rome, in the cult of Mithras. You can learn more about the Unio Mystica, the ecstatic reunion with God, and the detachment of the soul from the material body and its rise to the Metagod, the one, the monad, in my book, Rise Above the Gods Who Hate Us. I have several books on these subjects, which you can find at my website, CJBBooks.com. If you found this video interesting, I think you'll find my books even more fascinating. I'm able to go into much greater detail and provide significantly more sources to validate my unique insights and my novel theories. You can find my books at my website, CJBBooks.com. Also, please, if you can, and you appreciated this content, donate. It will help me to produce more of these videos explaining my theories. And please do visit my website, CJBBooks.com. I thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.